Right here. Okay, hello everybody. What I'm playing right here is called a diatonic button accordion that derives from the European area of Germany and Poland and stuff like that. This came into Mexican American culture later on when the Germans and the Polish and the Europeans settled in South Texas, and they brought over the button accordion. Right here is what I'm playing. This is a little more modern one, but they brought over the button accordion. It settled in South Texas, the region of South Texas. And all the migrant farm workers and the people that were working the fields at the time, they, with all the getting together and being part of one, well, we took over the accordion as the Mexican culture, and we started playing ourselves, and we started playing for our people, not just for dances or big halls or anything. It was for our culture, for our friends and family, for anybody around the area that came over to the barbecue and hangouts, And but yeah, this is a diatonic button accordion from Germany. It's a Hohner C2. This one here that I have here is called a Hohner C2. This is a 2021 new generation. This is called the new generation 2021 Hohner C2 that I've had the privilege to have. We are endorsed with Hohner accordions. They sent us one. This one here is awesome. It's a great accordion. Everybody out there, play Hohner accordion. Some Hohner accordions out there, yeah.
You want to, Matt, tell us about that guitar, because I understand it's really good.
Yes, so
The new one.
this guitar is brand new, actually. Maybe about not even a year old. I had nothing else better to do in 2020. The silly, stupid pandemic, it took a toll on everybody, so we decided to make a guitar, a Bajo Sexto, which comes from this one in particular comes from a third generation guitar maker that started making these right around the turn of the century, and he was from Spain, Martin Macias, and he moved to Michoacan, Mexico, Paracho, Mexico. And there he learned how to make these instruments from a luthier guitar maker. And then from there, he migrated to San Antonio and became really popular and started making these a little more in the 20s and 30s. And by the time, the 60s, he was, there was no other maker than him. And that was so popular, So he was the king daddy. So this instrument is like the Rolls Royce of the guitar. This is the Stradivarius of Bajo Sextos of Martin Macias. And so, like that's
designed to.
It was designed to take the place of the accompaniment part of the accordion, because when the Germans brought over the accordion, they a lot of folks think that this music comes from Mexico. No, it started in Texas, and of course at that time Texas was Mexico. So and that was in the southern region of Texas. So the instrument was designed to take the place of the accompaniment part of the accordion. So when the Germans and the Czechs and the Polish or whatever, they would play the accordion, they would accompaniment themselves, and it sounded like this. So the Bajo Sexto took the place of that. And therefore we created our own sound and our own style, call it Tex-Mex. And that's the Tex, and this is the Mex. So back in the days when the migrant farm workers were working the fields and we were working, this was our means of entertainment. It was just these two instruments, and they would have barn dances or, after a week of work in the fields. This is what we would do, and they would have a shindig or a pachanga or
party or whatever the music was made for our people to have a good time,
and so this is what it sounded like.
We want you to explain about the Bajo Sexto, this one that you got, the story behind
Yes.
This one.
Like I said, this is the third generation from Mr. Martin Macias. Then his son was Alberto Macias, and George Macias is the third generation who made this one for me. And so I had picked out some wood, to make a Bajo Sexto about 15 years ago from the second generation man. Alberto Macias. And so we picked out this wood that his father had in the attic, aged wood, and it was really dry. So I said, I had like this piece, whatever. And then he bundled it up for me. I gave him a deposit. He passed away, unfortunately.
You went off on tour though as well. You took off on tour. You didn't come back for a few years later.
So yeah, so then 15 years later, his son took over the shop. He calls me, says, Max, I found some wood in the attic, has your name on it, bundled up. And I said, that's the wood that I picked out, for your dad to make my bajo. So he said, well, I'll still honor it if you'd like me to. And I said, sure, absolutely. And he did. He made the bajo, and it's I love it. It's just a great sound. It's the grizzly bear of all guitars, man. Right here.
I'm not sure if you can hear me, Max, because I'm not quite sure if I have the sound set up right.
Sorry? I'm sorry?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
I'm a little curious. What's the difference between that and a 12-string guitar?
Oh, the difference is between the bajo sexto and a 12-string guitar is that the strings and the gauge of strings are a lot thicker and a lot. So you actually have bass strings on here.
Oh, that makes sense.
High and low octaves. And then the last set of three are unison.
So does that mean that you can kind
So
of
the gauge of strings are thicker. And so then in comparison to a guitar, it's like 3 times thicker the string.
It's kind of like similar to a baritone, I guess, gauge in between a baritone.
It's lower bit of baritone, yeah, and the baritone would be in between guitar and the bajo, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, you actually have bass strings on here,
Yeah, so it's kind of mean that like you could make yourself sound like a guitar and a bass at the same time,
Well,
like me.
You're doing when you're playing the rhythm, you're playing bass and rhythm guitar and the snare drum. You're playing all 3 at one time because the strike of the pick is that's a snare drum right there. So you don't really hear it because you're playing the chords behind it. And then you're adding bass notes to that.
That's pretty cool.
So you're that's how you play it. And so you're doing all 3 at once, And back then in those days, they didn't have modern PA systems. They didn't have amplifiers or anything like that. So that's why they made the bajo sexto to project, so they can be heard, because it was just out playing, outside or but these 2 instruments. So they wanted something with, and so the bajo played all 3 at once.
And this guitar here, the bajo sexto, it's very similar to in general, everything comes from the blues, no matter what. Everything comes from the blues, I think. Everything comes from the blues. So it's very similar to the guitar that Lead Belly played, which is like a guitarra doble, I believe.
Yeah, in those days, there was a handful of people that played a guitarra doble, which Lead Belly did play one, and Lydia Mendoza, which was the first Tejana, a female, to play Tex-Mex music, and she was back in the 30s, I guess, and she played a guitarra doble 12-string.
Lead Belly had the same thing.
And Lead Belly had the same exact one, nationals, yeah. So and so I had the honor to, of course, I had hair back then.
Right there.
I don't know. There you go. You can see. There's a photo with Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and myself and Flaco Jimenez in 1994, 95, I guess. And I had the honor to record one song on the Voodoo Lounge album of the Rolling Stones, and I played this instrument on Sweethearts Together, and it's pretty much they were looking for something different. They had tried trumpets, they had tried violins, they had tried cellos, they had tried so many instruments, according to Mick Jagger, that they finally said, how about an accordion? And let's get the Tex-Mex sound. So when they called Flaco Jimenez, we were backstage at Luna Park in Los Angeles, touring with Lorenzo. At the time had a band called the Rock Angels. And so we were, me and Flaco were touring with them. And that's when we got the phone call from Don Was, and said, hey, we saw that you're in town and we'd like for you to record on one of the track, on a Rolling Stones track. And then, so I was like, man, I was just like, are you serious? I was like, man, you know, and then Flaco said, sure, you know. So we hung up the phone, and then Flaco looks at me and he says, ¿Quiénes son los Rolling Stones?
In English, he asked, who's the Rolling Stones?
So what happened when you came here?
So yeah, so we finished we got, when we were in the studio, I didn't know that the whole time that we walked in, from the moment we walked into the studio, they had the tape rolling, you know. And back in those days, they recorded on that 2-inch tape, you know. And so they recorded everything. They recorded the song when they were learning the song, when they were rehearsing it, when Charlie Watts came in and sat on the drum set and started, you know, playing to the groove, and where, you know, Keith was singing it, and they tried it different styles and so forth and back and forth. And so then until the moment that me and Flaco walked in and did our overdubs, you know. And so Keith Richards, he saw my bajo sexto, and he just came up to me and he said, man, that's a beautiful instrument. Can I see it? And I said, sure. So I gave him the bajo, and he tried to play it like a guitar, like. And I said, it's tuned in fourths. And he said, wow. So he managed to get the chords, you know, hit fourths. And he's like, wow, this is amazing. Wow. He said, kept doing that, you know, and then he looks at it like that, and he says, I want this. He goes, I want it. He goes, you sell it to me? And I just said, man, you know, I thought, man, my father gave that to me when I was, you know, a youngster, when I was about 12 years old. And he says, oh, sentimental value. He goes, just name your price, he told me. And so, yeah, and at that time, he was just smoking a cigarette, you know, and that cigarette was all the way to the end, where the ashes were just about to fall, you know. And so he just looked at it again, and he went like that, and the thing fell, and it got a little burn there, and I kept it. I kept it there, you know. And he said, I'm sorry. He says, just name your price, he told me. I want this. And I didn't let it go, man. He told me 3 times, name your price. And I didn't sell it, man, because I was being, you know, loyal to my father bought it for me, you know, when I was young. When I finished the tour and I got home and I told my dad, he called me a pendejo. He said, you could have bought the factory, man. We could have bought, you know, could have bought 10 of them, you know. So
Pendejo means stupid.
Yeah. So you know, so this was back in 94, 95. Here comes 2016, 15, something like that, maybe 2012, something like that. We came to the mansion, you know, and it was the first time, 2012, I guess. And so Ted Sparrow says, Max, I want you to check out something, man. And so he has this really cool room that he had an iPod with thousands outtakes of different recordings from different rock bands, Led Zeppelin, Doug Sahm, Chuck Berry, I mean, you name it, Elvis Presley. These outtakes, you know, when people roll the tape, when you're walking in, from the time you walk in to the time you leave, they, you know, and so he says, I'd like you to hear this. And so I put the headphones on and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, that sounds familiar. That sounds like me. And, you know, it was the outtake when me and Flaco were walking into the studio to do that recording session. He had it. He has it. Priceless. You know, and I mean, I really got tears, man. I mean, it was just emotional. I'm like, wow, man, you know, and I'm listening to this, you know, how they're, I stayed there for hours listening, you know, how they made the song happen, you know, And then to where me and Flacco walk in and we did the recording, what Keith Richards was, wanting to buy my bottle, it's all there. And I didn't know they were recording this thing at the time. So, man, I just turned and I looked at Ted and I said, wow, man. And he says, not only that, guess what? Guess who's here? Staying at the mansion with you guys. And I'm like, who? He goes, Keith Richards. And I'm like, wow, man. I said, I want to see if you would want to buy my bottle now.
Not with that burn on it.
So I said, Ted, man, if there's a way, man, please, I said, I just want to shake his hand and see if he remembered, and so forth. And so Ted says, well, when I call you, just get down here, get down to the lobby, and because he's kind of in and out, he comes and he hangs out here to write music, to get away or whatever.
He's magical. He just disappears.
So Ted calls me to come down, and I happen to be taking a shower. So I missed the call. Then I called Ted. He said, man, you just missed him. He was just here, man. He waited for a few minutes, but couldn't get a hold of him. This wasn't meant to be. But I can always tell the story for the rest of my life. That's a good story. So we're blessed, and we've been part of the family here with Ted and H. Family, man. What can you say? I was almost died in the hospital during I had COVID back in November, and Ted was, him and H were texting me, and they were very concerned, and I'll never forget that, man. Just that means a lot, and so when we got here yesterday, we walked in, me and my nephew Josh here, we walked in, and H and Ted just gave us a hug, and it was just a heartfelt.
So warm.
It's really true, man. And this place is just home for us, man. It's magical. It's a magical home here, and I'm very I feel like I'm at home here, man. And so I'm very honored and appreciative. And what can I say, man? This new album we're doing, man, it's just coming out fantastic. The guys. All my band members, my nephew, Marisol, doing this project, it just everybody contributed, and in the right places and in the right times, and the album is just magical. This is one of the I would have to say this new coming album is one of the best. It's different than we've ever done, but yet it's Texmaniacs, so it's going to be a good one, man. So we're looking forward to that one.
Yes, that's so beautiful.
Also, real quick, I'm sorry. I wanted to remind everybody out there, and we'll soon have it here at the mansion because I'm going to donate some books. I have a book out that just came out maybe about a month ago. You can get it on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, whatever, online. But the name of the book is called Crossing Borders: My Journey Through Music, Max Baca. And so it just tell stories. It's like stories that I just said I told you about Keith Richards. There's a lot of stories like that in there, and my journeys that experiences that I've had. Excuse me, from when I was a little kid, playing at 5 years old until now, what I've experienced, touring with the Texas Tornadoes, and there's interviews with all my my mentors, David Hidalgo. From Los Lobos, Flaco Jimenez, Augie Myers, and so many musicians that interviewed and telling stories about us crossing borders and crossing our paths, and my bandmates, and my colleagues in my band, their stories and how everything is. It's just a beautiful book, and I'd like to thank Mr. Craig Harris for help writing the book. We spent hours and hours of interviewing. He came to San Antonio. He's from Rhode Island. He came from San Antonio and stayed with me about a week, and just every day we'd interview, and he'd record and my stories, and then we call different musicians. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Eduardo Diaz, if you don't mind, Eduardo, I appreciate it if you'd come over here. He plays a big part in my book. Eduardo, he got interviewed by Craig, and and he just, really made a lot of, opened what do you say? Opened people's eyes onto where the music and Tex-Mex and beyond. From his knowledge from years of being in this business and so forth. And it's in the book. So people like Eduardo Daniel Sheehy from Smithsonian Folkways are telling their stories and stuff. And it's not only about Max Bucket, it's about the music in general and how the Tex-Mex music started and where it came from, where the bajo sexto, where the accordion came from, and so forth. And it's a really interesting book, man. So if you get a chance, we will have it here at the mansion here shortly. It's on the way, and we'll have some copies for you folks that want to buy one. There'll be some links that you can get one pre-ordered if you like, and I'll sign it for you, and I'll have it signed by the time that Ted gets it. So,
Thank you so much. So awesome.
It's our pleasure.
I didn't know we'll see you many more times.
Yes, we will be back.
We're gonna
soon.
wrap up the community now.
Okay.
Thank you all so much. Please look us up on Texmaniacs on our Instagram, our Facebook, and all that good stuff. Please share the link. We are so happy and honored to be here, and we are happy to answer any questions and teach. If you are looking for bajo sexto lessons, we do have bajo sexto lessons and accordion lessons for Tex-Mex music. So please give us a shout and let us help you to conquer your dreams in the conjunto Tex-Mex world, baby. Yeah, you're right.
Gracias. God bless y'all. Thank you, Susie.
Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for being here. You guys were awesome.
Thank you for being so patient with us too.
Oh,
I
you
know
guys
we were struggling to get things done at the last minute, but we made it happen. We thank God that we executed it and got it done.
Not only did you make it happen, it was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susie. All right, give Susie a round of applause, folks. Yeah.